any other countries in Eastern Europe that are at risk for Putin invading?
Well, I don't think so because they're all members of NATO. So if Putin invaded them, it would bring the full force of the Western alliance against them. So I think that's the why Ukraine was so vulnerable. Now I think going forward, at some point, we're going to have to draw a bright red line that says this is the West and this is Russia, and any incursion by Russia across that line would trigger a full-scale war. So we don't have that kind of guarantee at the moment, but I think in going forward, that would be a good means for preserving stability.
What could avert that big red line? Is that a full-scale change in leadership in Russia and Putin somehow getting booted from power?
Well, yeah, that's one thing we're always speculating about what comes after Putin, because obviously he's not going to live forever. But when I was starting Soviet studies back when I was in grad school in the mid 80s, we all were very romantic looking at Gorbachev and thinking that he was going to be able to reform the communist system, create a peaceful, democratic, capitalist society. That obviously didn't happen. It was very chaotic. It was affected by a lot of organized crime groups and things like that. And then Putin took over and sort of reimposed the kind of centralized authority that we thought was gone forever. So that seems to be the Russian trend. So I think we should think of Russia more as a deeply authoritarian country and deal with it on those terms going forward.
And also think of Putin as a leader who, even if the Ukraine conflict doesn't go his way, will be in power until his death. Is that your prediction?
Absolutely, yeah. There's no way he's leaving office. So until he's dead. So yeah, that's just the fact, and we have to deal with it.
What else are you watching? I mentioned at the top of this conversation that the last 10, 11 days have moved very quickly on the front lines of this conflict. Is there an aspect of the conflict that you are watching, of Ukrainian-Russian interactions that you're watching? What will you be paying attention to in the coming days, weeks, and months?
Well, I think the thing to expect is more surprises because obviously everything about this war has been a surprise. It was a surprise when Putin went into Ukraine. It was a surprise that Ukraine was able to fend off the Russian advance, and actually, most people assumed they wouldn't be able to do that. It was a surprise that the war keeps going on and on and on. It was a surprise that the Russian people actually support this. I thought that the Russians learned the lesson of World War II. It's a surprise that Ukraine now has invaded Russia. So I think we can start expecting more surprises. We've seen a lot of explosions around Russia. Ukrainians are clearly targeting Russian war-fighting capacity, trying to take out their Air Force bases and other institutions so that it would reduce the pressure on Ukraine. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to, as the West supplies more weapons to Ukraine, we had a lull there for about 6 months, and then the pipeline has been filling up more recently. I think we're going to start to see Ukraine getting greater offensive capacity and be able to do things that we hadn't seen in the past. And so that's going to put Russia back a little bit. I think we'll have to think about what this all means for China, because Russia is basically closely aligned with China, but this is going to be a huge embarrassment for the Chinese too, to have their ally being invaded by the country they were trying to invade themselves. So I think there's going to be a lot of geopolitical aspects here that we need to start thinking through, and what this means for the Middle East, what's going to happen with Iran and how that connects back to Russia. There's very strong ties there. So we're going to see a lot of change in the next few months. And so I think that'll be a very interesting process to watch.